The sky above Detroit was gray and brooding, casting a somber mood over the city. In the heart of a thriving but struggling black neighborhood sat Cafe Alma, a small coffee shop buzzing with energy. Tonight was no ordinary night. It was the night of a highly anticipated community discussion. Why are black communities still struggling? The crowd was diverse. Students, activists, business owners, and curious residents filled every seat, the air thick with anticipation. Among them was Damien Ross, a young entrepreneur who had risen from the same neighborhood's challenges. Known for his sharp wit and deep insights, Damien was here to offer a perspective many hadn't considered. As the event began, various speakers shared heartfelt stories of racism, personal setbacks, and systemic barriers. Each account was met with murmurs of agreement and somber nods. But when Damien stood up to speak, the atmosphere shifted. Act 1. Breaking the Ice. "Let me start with this," Damien said, his voice steady but commanding. "It's easy to blame everything on racism. It's real, and it's hurt us for centuries. But the truth is, it's not just about race anymore. It's about a system designed to keep people like us at the bottom." The crowd exchanged skeptical glances, but Damien's confidence held their attention. He grabbed a napkin and began drawing 3 interlocking circles. "This is the root of our struggle: economics, education, and policy. When one fails, the others crumble. It's not just racism, it's systemic neglect." Act 2. The Economics Trap. Damien pointed to the first circle: economics. He began with a story from his childhood. "When I was 10, my dad worked at an auto plant. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Then one day, the plant shut down. Hundreds of families, including mine, were left scrambling. My mom picked up 2 jobs, but we still struggled to make ends meet. We had no savings, no safety net." Damien paused, letting the memory settle in the room. And that wasn't an isolated case. Our neighborhoods were gutted when industries left, but it wasn't just about job loss, it was about wealth loss. He explained how discriminatory practices like redlining had kept black families from buying homes in prosperous areas, robbing them of the chance to build generational wealth. Even in modern times, black entrepreneurs faced hurdles like predatory lending and limited access to capital. "We're not just fighting racism, we're fighting an economic system that was never meant to include us," Damien said. "And the result? Cycles of poverty that are nearly impossible to break." Act 3. Education, a broken ladder. Next, Damien shifted to the second circle: education. He recounted the state of his childhood school. "My middle school was falling apart. The textbooks were older than the teachers, and the classrooms were overcrowded. By the time I got to high school, half of my friends had dropped out, not because they weren't smart, but because the system failed them." Damien explained the root of the problem: public school funding tied to property taxes. In impoverished neighborhoods, schools received less funding, perpetuating a cycle of poor education and limited opportunities. "But it's not just about money," he added. "It's about what we're being taught. Our schools focus on survival, not success. No one told us how to invest, start a business, or climb the corporate ladder. We were trained to be workers, not leaders." Act 4. Policy, the invisible hand. Finally, Damien addressed the third circle: policy. "This is where the real game is played," he said, pointing to the circle. "Policies control everything, from how much teachers get paid to how loans are approved." He explained how decades of policies like the war on drugs disproportionately targeted black communities, leading to mass incarceration and fractured families. He cited minimum wage laws that failed to keep up with inflation, leaving families unable to afford basic necessities. "And don't get me started on healthcare," Damien said. "One hospital bill can wipe out a family's savings. How can we build wealth when we're one emergency away from losing everything?" Act 5. A personal turn. The room grew quieter as Damien shared a deeply personal story. "When I was 12, my dad, who had already lost his job, got sick. Without health insurance, we couldn't afford the treatments he needed. He passed away when I was 14. I watched my mom work herself to exhaustion trying to keep us afloat. By the time I graduated high school, I had 2 part-time jobs and no direction. But Damien's life changed when a local nonprofit introduced a coding program at his school. They taught us skills that no one else cared to teach. That program gave me hope, a skill set, and a vision for my future. Act 6. Solutions, not excuses. Damien's tone shifted from somber to resolute. I'm not here to just talk about problems. I'm here to talk about solutions. The system may be rigged, but that doesn't mean we can't fight back. He outlined 3 steps for change. Support local businesses. Every dollar we spend in our community stays here and strengthens it. Stop feeding corporations that don't care about us. Demand better policies. Vote in every election. Write letters. Protest. Hold leaders accountable. If they don't fight for us, we vote them out. Invest in education. Mentor a child. Donate to schools. Support programs that teach real-world skills. We don't need handouts. We need tools to succeed. Act 7. The Ripple Effect. Months after the discussion, Cafe Alma became the epicenter of a growing movement. Inspired by Damien's words, community members launched mentorship programs, funded scholarships, and advocated for policy changes. A local entrepreneur opened a cooperative that allowed Black-owned businesses to pool resources and compete with larger companies. Damien himself continued to rise. He expanded his tech company, hiring directly from his neighborhood and offering free workshops on coding and entrepreneurship. His story became a beacon of hope, spreading across the city and inspiring other communities. Act 8. The Bigger Picture. Years later, Damien stood before a packed auditorium as the keynote speaker at a national conference. His once modest voice now echoed across the room with the confidence of a leader. The struggle of Black people isn't just about race, Damien said. It's about a system that was never built for us. But here's the thing. They can't ignore us when we show up, speak out, and support each other. Change doesn't come from waiting. It comes from action. The audience erupted in applause. Damien's words weren't just inspiring, they were a call to arms. Conclusion: a new narrative. Damien's story wasn't just about exposing systemic failures, it was about proving that change is possible. He showed that while the fight against racism is vital, it must go hand in hand with tackling economic inequality, educational reform, and policy changes. Through his journey, Damien reminded his community and the world that the struggle isn't insurmountable. It's a challenge that can be overcome with unity, resilience, and relentless action. And as Damien often said, it's not just about fixing the system, it's about building a better one.